Welcome, everyone. This is sort of a special edition. Sometimes you probably say to yourself, oh, I didn't like that sermon, or I didn't get much out of that sermon. Well, sometimes I feel the same way. Like I've put together a sermon and I'm just not satisfied with it. And such was the case on this 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I did a sermon that was based on the second reading and never was really truly satisfied with it. So then on Saturday afternoon, we tape on Thursday, on Saturday afternoon I thought, well, I'm just going to write a different one. And so I wrote a different one, used that one in the parishes, but then I called up Sleeveless Bob and said, we've got to record this one, just so that people know that maybe I wasn't satisfied with the past one, but I wanted them to hear this one. So, special edition. And our reading that it was based on comes from St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, faith is the realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen. Because of it, the ancients were well attested. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. He went out, not knowing where he was to go. By faith, he sojourned in the promised land as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and maker is God. By faith, he received power to generate, even though he was past the normal age, and Sarah herself was sterile. For he thought that the one who had made the promise was trustworthy. So it was that there came forth from one man, himself as good as dead, descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sands on the seashore. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Yogi Berra once said that it ain't over till it's over. He had all kinds of statements like that, all kinds of sayings like that. They sounded stupid, but a lot of times they're really true and they have a lot of meaning. It ain't over till it's over. There's always hope, no matter what the score is, no matter what the time is, and no matter how bleak the outlook may be. It ain't over till it's over. In 1978, the New York Yankees were trailing Boston by 14 games in July, and it looked like it was over. But it ain't over till it's over, and the Yankees prevailed. On August 21st, 1991, the Philadelphia Phillies were behind the Dodgers by a score of 11-1 in the 8th inning. And it looked like the game was over, and I'm sure a lot of people were leaving the stadium or had left already. But it ain't over till it's over, and the Phillies won. We could always think of how, as long as, the 27th out hasn't been made, there's always a chance. There's always time, and there's always the possibility, of overcoming whatever the obstacle is. And the lesson is, don't quit. Don't give up. Yogi Berra knew that, and deep in our hearts we know that too, that we should never give up and we should never quit. And that's true not only in baseball, it's true in football. Think of how many times maybe, it's been about 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night, and the Packers are losing. And you say to yourself, there's 3 minutes left in the game, I'm going to bed. And you go to bed, and lo and behold, what happens? In the morning you found out the Packers won, that Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers pulled the game out in the last minute or two. And you say, why didn't I stay awake for 3 more minutes? We could think of the same as true in life. I think often of people who undergo chemotherapy and how much of a struggle it is and how easy it would be to give up. But as Yogi Berra says, it ain't over till it's over. So don't quit, and don't give up. Giving up, I think, seems like it's a reasonable option in our day and in our time. Think of planet Earth. There are a lot of people who look at it and say, oh, there's a lot of floods, there's a lot of fires, there's a lot of disease, there's all kinds of mass migration taking place, the planet is warming up. And some say, well, it's probably got 10 more years and then the planet is going to be gone. Or we think to ourselves, where is wise global leadership? And maybe it seems reasonable to give up. We could think of how a lot of people maybe ease their anxieties by eating junk food and becoming obese, or by making frequent shopping trips to the dollar store. Or maybe they look at the world and say, human history is sort of circling the drain, and people are acting like they're on a merry-go-round. But we might think of that second reading today, that one about Abraham, and reflect and say to ourselves, it ain't over till it's over. Abraham was a decrepit old man. I laugh a little bit when I read that story that we just read, where it says, he was one man and he was as good as dead. The old dude was circling the drain. But then along comes God, and God says that I will make you the father of nations. I will bless you. I will bless your name. And those who know you are going to consider themselves blessed. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And then at the end of that reading today, what seems, I'm sure, for Abraham and for Sarah, who is sterile, seems like, what are you talking about? I'm going to make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as numerous as sand on a seashore. But here's the kicker. Abraham bought into it. Abraham bought into it. As that reading says, he had faith, he trusted, and he had hope. So we could think of the world today. Have you ever just listened when you've got a sink full of water, and then you pull the plug and it goes down, and you hear that gluk gluk at the end? There are a lot of people, I think, that's what they think is going to happen to the world. That human history, is being sucked right down the drain and is about to end. But we could take comfort from Abraham today. Here's an old man who, because of his faith, because of his trust, because of his hope, he starts a whole new era. And here's a decrepit old man, that because of his faith, because of his trust, because of his hope in God, sets the whole world on its ear. We've seen this happen not only with Abraham, where they were saying, well, stick a fork in the world because it's done. We could think of the church where a lot of times I'm sure people have said, stick a fork in it because it's over, it's done, they're dead. But then along comes a person like Ignatius of Loyola, and with 4 other people forms the Jesuit order, and all of a sudden everything changes and the world is alive and going again, and there's faith all over. Or take a look at St. Dominic and St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century. Everybody was saying stick a fork in the church because it's just out of touch with what's going on. But then St. Francis would come along and begin a whole new type of being a Christian, with things like the nativity set, where you were bringing God down to earth and making it a human scene, or with soup kitchens, where the poor all of a sudden were being fed. By the time that Francis of Assisi died, there were 5,000 priests in the Franciscan order that he had started. So we could say to ourselves, that there was Abraham, there was Ignatius of Loyola, there was Dominic, there was St. Francis. Now we are in our time, and we might ask ourselves this question: will you be the one, that sets the world on its ear, that starts a whole new era by your faith, your trust, and your hope?